Hello, my name is Karen Choe, and I will be going over the use of dioxin in Da Nang, Vietnam. I'll be going over the objectives, timeline with various figures and graphs on the historical context, research, the impact and follow-up of dioxin, and conclude with a summary. The objectives of this presentation is to understand the use of dioxin during the Vietnam War, to discuss the environmental and health consequences of TCDD exposure, and to discuss the aftermath and cleanup. So we have our timeline, and we can go back to the 1940s and 50s for the development of dioxin when the US was developing synthetic compounds capable of suppressing plant growth. By 1960, the US had tested numerous herbicides and aerial delivery techniques in anticipation of large-scale use in the Vietnam War. They conducted the first field tests in Vietnam in 1961 and officially began military use of herbicides in 1962. This included Agent Orange, White, Blue, with its usage peaking around 1967. During the Vietnam War, Da Nang City was a major base for war operations. It is a coastal city in central Vietnam, home to approximately 1.3 million people. In brief, the US Army transported herbicides to Da Nang Port and Airbase to spray over Vietnam during the Operation Ranch Hand. And in this map, you can see in red all of the spray missions. So what is dioxin? Dioxin is essentially the byproduct of combining the two compounds, 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T. So by making Agent Orange, dioxin is created. Dioxin is an odorless white crystalline solid, and because it is highly lipophilic with a long half-life, it's very persistent in the soil and in the body. Going back to our timeline, so from 1965 to 1971, 3 different agent colors were used. And here is a graphical breakdown of the herbicides used during this period. Out of the 19 millions of gallons of herbicide sprayed, approximately 11.22 millions of gallons of Agent Orange was used in Vietnam. The image on your right is one of the barrels of Agent Orange, identified by its orange band. Agent Orange was used for improving the ability to detect enemy base camps by defoliating forests as well as destroying crops. It was sprayed mostly aerially, but also on the ground and by water. In 1969, US researchers found that Agent Orange was teratogenic. That is, at high doses, it caused burst effects in mice. Later studies confirmed what the chemical companies already knew, that the millions of gallons of Agent Orange was contaminated with dioxin. Thus, the last defoliation mission using Agent Orange took place in 1970, although the US EPA did not formally ban it until later. And in the 1970s, US researchers began studying dioxin exposure. They detected high levels of dioxin in Vietnamese nursing mothers' milk and in the fish from the sprayed area. Dioxin was determined to be extremely toxic to some lab animals and strongly implicated as the cause of chloracne in humans. So what was the impact? Dioxin is highly toxic, and due to its long half-life, it accumulates in the fat of animals and humans, stays in the soil and at the bottom of lakes and rivers for generations. So as it moves up the food chain, the process of biomagnification makes it 12 times more concentrated. The Da Nang Air Base map above, where chemicals were mishandled, spilled, carelessly disposed, is a major hotspot. Dioxin has been spreading as a result of water, wind action, soil erosion, etc., to the surrounding lakes and rivers. Workers, local residents, and their families have been affected from the direct contact with the water, fish, and vegetation. Risk is especially higher given that the local diet in Da Nang of fish and mollusks harvested from these lakes are are by the hotspot. Dioxin is a tumor promoter, causes cancers, colorectal, and reproductive and developmental effects. It damages genes and causes deformities in the offspring of exposed individuals. And today, dioxin is listed as a carcinogen. This is a map of the Da Nang Air Base where you can see all the sampling locations. And dioxin levels have been found to be 365,000 parts per trillion TEQ, which is more than 365 times the standard for soil. Here is a chart of the Da Nang cluster broken down by province. In total, approximately 2.2 million gallons of herbicide or 65 kilograms of dioxin contaminated this area. This results in about 14% of the total Da Nang area. This is a graph comparing dioxin levels in human blood from different areas in Vietnam. Samples were taken between late 1990s to 2000s. The data in orange is from the Da Nang Air Base, where you can see that dioxin levels are highest. Compare this to your far right. This is the control area, where the max dioxin level is just around 2 parts per trillion per lipid weight. Since then, cleanup discussions between the US and Vietnam began in 2008. This resulted in the Da Nang Airport Remediation Project from 2012 to 2018. During this period, they used thermal treatment and containment remediation approaches to treat the soil so that dioxin concentrations fell below the agreed upon level of 150 ppt. After 2 rounds, it was determined in 2017 that treatment was successful for preventing human health and environmental impact. But even after the remediation project, dioxin haunts many lives. In Da Nang, it is still found in the local food supply. Overall, it is estimated that as many as 1 to 4 million Vietnamese have disabilities attributable to dioxin, with new cases still appearing in the newer generations born long after the war. Here are my references, and thank you for watching.